Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I am Patrick.
And I'm Paul. How's it going?
Very good, my friend. Messed up the very start of us going live there, so there's going to be a little bit extra to be trimmed off this week's video. Everybody, welcome. Me and Paul are about to talk about something we love very much, which means we will get very excited, which is good for
Yeah.
you because that makes for better internet, I hope. Anyway, Paul, we're going to be talking about one of Aaron Sorkin's least known TV shows. One of his, as I called it, it's his big miss for me because it
Mm.
wasn't anything he did, but it didn't land. It wasn't as famous as The West Wing or as revered as Newsroom, and it happened in
Yeah.
between the two. I think we'll go into it that a lot of Aaron Sorkin's work after this show wouldn't have been as good without it. I think Sorkin honed some of his talents on this after The West Wing. And it's Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. So are you excited to talk about this one, Paul?
Oh yeah. No, the Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip is one of my favorite Witchwood TV shows. It's one of those like weird ones that I stumbled across. A friend of mine actually which was introduced me to it. And after that I just devoured the entire show and repeatedly devoured the entire show quite a
Yes.
lot. It's one of those kind of staples where I go back to. Like actually the West Wing and also
Newsroom.
the Newsroom as well. Three shows that I will venture back to a lot.
It would be fairly obvious to point out that we're Sorkin fans. He's come up a fair amount. We like the writing style. I like, and Paul, I think you do too, but I'll stop saying we because I know we like Sorkin, but I'm about to be very personal with this. I like ensemble cast TV shows. I like things moving at a pace. It's my style. I think it's your style too, Paul. It means that we're naturally predisposed to this stuff. So anybody out there who's watching and is thinking, well, I hate Aaron Sorkin and I don't like any of that style stuff, stick around because this is going to be slightly more interesting than all that. There's a little bit more to Studio 60, including why you haven't heard of it if you haven't. Or if you have, then you'll already know some of the big things that we're going to come across, particularly its short lifespan, even though it
Hmm.
was tipped to have a very long lifespan. Everybody assumed it was, quite literally, the next West Wing. So, Paul,
Yeah.
how about we jump into it and get straight to that plot? The imagery I have on screen, Paul, for your reference, is I have the famous wall clock with the 7 day
Hmm.
countdown, and I have the cast on a stage. Because, Paul, this show, if the West Wing was based on the White House and the Newsroom was based on a newsroom, Studio 60 is based on Studio 60, which is a little tongue in cheek point to Studio 8H, or yeah, it's 8H, isn't it, for
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live? So, Saturday Night Live, the famous live Saturday night review show where people do, there's star guest, there's musical act, and then there's comedy sketches. Well, that's what Studio 60 is supposed to be. And the TV show you're watching is about, ostensibly, it's about that show being made from the time it ends to the time it next airs. All of the prep, all of the drama, all of the politics, all of the business, all of the interpersonal relationships between cast and producers and executives. It's showing you the high pressure environment that is a giant clock saying 7 days from when you just ended or when you just started the last show, you have to have another one. To a lot of people, Paul, that doesn't seem like high stakes. To me, I'm sweating thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's an interesting because yeah. So the premise is essentially it's set, which is as a the creation of a live show, television sketch show, very much like SNL, which is in a week's period, and as kind of encroaches towards the kind of the Saturday kind of or it's a yeah the Saturday kind of showing of the live show. It's all the pressures and everything like that of the creative process and everything like that, all the way leading up to it. Being that writers having to write an entire show within a week, which is crazy. Production and everything like that, being able to get everything ready, the actors learning all the lines and everything for each of the skits and sketches, which is and then all the pressures of the commerce kind of side of things with the business and everything kind of getting sponsorships and making sure that everything's okay
Yeah.
with more kind of business side. It's such a high stake thing, which is really interesting to have as a TV show, on a TV show,
Mm-hmm.
which would be I've guess, referred to as very meta nowadays
Yeah,
in the sense.
actually, that's true. Back then it wouldn't have been, but now it would be.
Yeah, but it's a great show just showing the pressures between the creative process and the business side of things, and then how these people kind of interact with each other week to week as the pressures build and build and build. Because which is really interesting. So you've got interpersonal relationships going on with also trying to all focus on getting this one show out, and then restarting the whole thing again the next week. You know.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. It's the perfect thing. You know, we'll talk about the cast and the actual actors, etc., and characters a little bit later in the video, but it's the perfect premise for an ensemble cast, much like the West Wing was with, you know, inside. It's not just the Oval Office with the president; it's inside the White House and the White House staff, etc. Same thing with a newsroom. It's not just about the news anchor; it's about everybody that comes together to make it. Again, this is a cast and crew and producers and executives and guest stars and business needs and wider and wider and wider, and that leaves, you know, the magic of Aaron Sorkin's writing. It leaves it so many places to play. Gives you so many different plot lines that you can interweave and just run into dead ends for the fun of it if you want. You know, you can have little throwaways as part of bigger things. Unfortunately, Paul, and we'll get on to the actors and why it's so great, I think, in a second. But unfortunately, this didn't connect with people. It didn't connect with people enough, fast enough for the studio. It much loved after the fact, wasn't as loved at the time, and we'll get into again at the end of the video. I think we'll cover why it failed. But it made 22 episodes of, you've already mentioned it, some of the most rewatchable, engaging TV in the history of time. In fact, it's one of the reasons you and I became friends. If you remember way back, there were a few things that we mentioned that we were the only two in the room that cared anything about. And this was one of those things. I think we even, one of our earlier conversations was about, you know, trying to get the DVD box set, first full complete season of Studio 60. So,
It's very difficult.
to say that it's had an effect on a lot of people who identify with it from the excitement of creating something in a short space of time and understanding how much time can disappear when you're trying to create something. It's an incredible premise, for me and for you, but it wasn't for everybody. But Paul, yeah, so I'm gonna call the man himself out. We know Sorkin, West Wing, Newsroom, Social Network, etc. Famous. A lot of people make the Sorkin joke of, well, it's just people walking down hallways delivering dialogue very quickly, and it can be. It's not always a
Yeah,
hallway, but it can be.
it's a lot of hallway walking. Yeah, you can definitely tell from Aaron Sorkin's kind of style of writing of a very fast paced kind of thing because they don't have the time
Yeah,
to kind of go through which I think really plays well. He chooses his settings of the fast talking, walking down a corridor, making sense, like, you know, West Wing, where lots of things are going on quite fast. The newsroom, where, you know, you have to constantly change, and then yeah, creating a live comedy sketch show. They
yeah,
all lead themselves to the great walkout, but they also self reference a lot of times to that. Of, like, you know, there's
yeah.
several times where a character is just like, "Wow, you can walk and talk real fast." Like,
Exactly. Sorkin knows what people say about him, and quite rightly so. But we've got Matthew Perry in actually some of his guest starring on the West Wing, or on the West Wing on screen. Or no, actually, this is from Studio 60. I can't tell
that's
which
what
hallway
Studio
he's
60,
standing
yeah.
in. That is Studio 60. Sorry, I thought I'd used the other image. Um, Matthew Perry unfortunately passed away about a month ago. We're not doing this episode to cash in on that at all. That's why it's a Studio 60 episode. He just happened to be the star. He did have previous with Aaron Sorkin, having turned in some brilliant performances on The West Wing. I think to understate how beloved Chandler Bing and Matthew Perry are now in the light of his unfortunate passing, it's impossible. It's impossible not to acknowledge it. But I want to try and get beyond that and maybe cast our minds back to when this happened. This is what Matthew Perry did after Friends. So
Mhm.
he was Chandler to so many people, and here he was getting to be Matthew Albee, a the great writer who was going to create Studio 60 every week. So what do you put around him, Paul? You put around him some incredible actors and some credible characters. So I'm pulling up Sarah Paulson, Bradley Whitford. Bradley Whitford, a Sorkin alumni, very big role in The West Wing prior to this. Sarah Paulson, who's famous now, but it has to be said wasn't then.
Yeah, that is true, which is a very sad kind of affair, because she is multi-talented in Studio 60.
Yeah,
Like she plays the one of the main cast members of the comedy kind of duo thing, and she plays really well off some very, I would say, some very strong characters, and strong actors as well. So like I do have to say that it is good. It is great to have Sarah Paulson maybe more recognized now than maybe she was. So
exactly. It would have been a crying shame if this had been, if Studio 60 had been the end of the road for her rather than one of the launching pads to show her. And I, like, personally, I love the fact that her character, she's one of the cast on the Studio 60 show. So she is, think of her like a Kate McKinnon, I'm trying to pick the most famous SNL cast members, Kirsten Wiig, those sorts of people. She was one of their stars, let's say, or one of the stars on this show that they were fictitiously producing, and it gave her a chance to show in the little sketches within the TV show, to show range. And let's face it, she's done her Holly Hunter impression on pretty much every talk show ever since, but we saw it first on Studio 60, and she's very good at it. She did go on to have a hell of a career, and she is a household name now, like you say, quite rightly, or at least very recognizable. Bradley Whitford, on the other hand, was maybe the biggest star after Matthew Perry at the time that Studio 60 was made. And his career has gone, he's still Bradley Whitford to you and me. For a lot of people, he's kind of like Sarah Paulson that actress from whatever. Brad Whitford will be, the Sorkin guy, right? Or the West Wing guy. But he's turned in numerous incredibly important performances in other movies, in other TV shows. Get Out, like, Jordan Peele's breakout hit. I can't imagine anybody else playing the Bradley Whitford character in it like Bradley Whitford.
yeah, playing the father, yeah, like he's very good. He's very menacing in that film.
He really is. And because he plays nice guy, snide and snivelly a-hole to creepy menacing. Bradley Whitford's one of those people, you look at him and think he doesn't have any range, and then you realize, oh my god, he has all the range. It just all happens in that little Bradley Whitford face, which Cabin in the Woods is the best example of, because he plays a small but meaningful part as what can only be described as a bit of a twat, back at, placing bets on how people are going to pass away in Cabin in the Woods.
He very much, yeah, he very much, he's a big part of the dehumanization of the characters,
Yeah.
or the people inside the kind of trap or inside the ritual kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's a big part of that kind of like it's a game kind of thing, which is great because he plays it off so well. But he also endears you to his character in Cabin in the Woods with the whole I want to see a merman,
That's right.
kind of thing. So, but in West Wing as well, he also plays which is quite a good character as well, which he will be probably more well known for, and but in Studio 60 he plays an amazing partner
Yeah.
to Matt Berry's Matt Albee.
And that's it. Matt and Danny. He plays a character called Danny Tripp, and the two of them it's Matt and Danny. Matt and Danny. If you watch the show, Matt and Danny means something to you because they are like Fraser and Niles. There's very much a connection between the two of them. Paul, we'll come back to Matt and Danny, I think, in a minute, because there's so many other people in this cast. Let's kind of kick into them. So we've covered the Matthew Perry, Bradley Whitford stars of the show. Like, there's no two ways about it. They are the central stars. Sarah Paulson then has a huge part, not just as a love interest, but as a real main player in the show. Then you've got so if you've got that as the creative team, so the producer and the writer, and one of the acting leads, you've then in the fictitious show you've got the business side of things, and here we have Amanda Peet and Steven Weber and oh gosh, I got a Timothy Busfeld. So the top two are really business in Studio 60. Amanda Peet and Steven Weber, they play the people who are financially running the show. Let's put it that way. That's their end of production and network heads, or heads of parts of light entertainment for networks. Two more perfect bit of castings you couldn't have done at the time. And Amanda Peet, she may not have gone on to have a huge career by choice, apparently, but people knew Amanda Peet's name around this time or after this time. The Whole Nine Yards, which is another link to Matthew Perry. She was an Identity. She's been in a lot of things. She was a real famous face of the time. And people often don't realize that she ever did this Studio 60 show. Very weird.
Yeah, it is. It isn't you like it is weird because Amanda Peet's character, Jordan McDeere, she is the catalyst to the whole thing,
Yeah.
kind of thing. As in, she's the creative director. Sorry, not yeah. She's the president of essentially, I think the public network,
Yeah.
and she's chosen Matt Albee and Danny Trips to retake over the studio as they were originally writers and producers. Which was she's the very big catalyst of it because she's a creative or she's a business head who loves the creatives,
Yeah.
which is a big mix to show in the thing where a lot of the more business heads with which is Steven Weber as kind of the he's the president or which is he's more focused on the business side of things, very about the advertisers, about the sponsorships and everything like that, about what's coming up next in the shows and stuff. So he's got such a big wider picture of the whole kind of like concept of the business, whereas Amanda Peet's character is more kind of focused on just the broadcasting end of the show. But it's such a great kind of they have such a great all four of them have such a great dynamic kind of thing. You've got the two creatives who hate the business. You've got that one business head who's in the middle of it, and then you got which is Weber's character who's all business, but softens a little.
And I was just about to say, but when he softens, it's so important. It's when he is, because he's the ultimate business guy, and then goes to the mat, goes to the floor, stands up to fight for what's right when it comes to, journalistic integrity, when it comes to ethical support of his creative team. And that's, there are plenty of clench your fist and punch the air, yay moments in Studio 60. And they don't come necessarily from the main lovable cast, the people that you're supposed to be rooting for. And that's another Sorkin thing. Subvert expectations. Go to the person that you think isn't going to be in the right side of history and show that they believe in what they believe and they do what they do because of who they are. But it doesn't mean that they're completely morally bankrupt. And it's a great way of showing humanity, and it's a great way of showing these are the people you don't disagree with. But it doesn't mean that they don't have a moral center or they don't have some sort of standard that they want to live by. And taking the guy from Wings, because for me, when I watch Studio 60, Steven Weber's a jobbing actor, and I grew up watching Wings, kind of a little nothing TV show that I didn't know anybody else watched, and then I find out it had a huge fan base too. And he was just perfectly cast at that point in his career.
Oh, he's great. He's great in it.
And yeah, Paul, I guess I'm just looked at the time. I'm going to have to speed up on the people because there's another like 15 of them. So just want to call out Timothy Busfeld. Anybody old enough to remember hating 30-something like me will recognize him as, I would have said the annoying character, but they were all annoying in 30-something. Feel free to comment if you love 30-something. I'm really sorry, but my God, it was like writing a whole list of characters that were just meant to annoy me. But he was a face that everybody recognized when he took this on. So they weren't getting nobodies. Sorkin doesn't have to scrape the barrel for actors. And that's where, for the rest of the ensemble cast of Studio 60, the fictitious show within the show, he got D.L. Hughley from, comedian who has plenty of screen credits. He got Nate. Oh, why am I forgetting Nate's name? Nate Cordry. Thank you.
Cordry.
Yeah, Nate Cordry, who since Studio 60 has, he's gone on to act with Bill Murray. He's gone on to act in things with Tom Hanks in it. His career hasn't gone nowhere because, again, a great choice at the time. I think the obvious one to point out at the bottom is before The Big Bang Theory and before he was worth more money than all of us combined, all of our viewers combined, because nobody involved with The Big Bang Theory is broke. Simon Helberg. Simon Helberg was in Studio 60. And honestly, you could see the guy had talent. You could see he was going to go somewhere. And whatever you think about Big Bang Theory or his character Howard, he's done so much more on top of The Big Bang Theory also. He's a talented writer, director, actor that works. So like they were pulling top drawer. And I'm on page 2 of 3 for cast here, Paul.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just go straight to it. It's crazy. Couple of honorable mentions then. Nate Torrance and Ida Field. Again, people without huge careers, but you probably recognize Nate Torrance. I've pulled She's Out of My League because it's a big guilty pleasure film. I absolutely adore that movie. I think it's full of charm, and he is one of the reasons that it's full of charm. Plays a very sweet character, and every scene he's in, he steals in a film full of scene stealing co-stars.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree that the even them, they are kind of the juniors in the casting kind of thing. In the cast of the Studio 60 sketch show kind of thing. But they're two amazing actors who which work really well as those roles. And you see them in other stuff, and you're just reminded of kind of sweetheartness.
And for anybody who's wondering where they know Aya Field from now, it's probably because she's Robbie Williams' wife, fiance, girlfriend. I'm not too sure. Robbie Williams of Robbie Williams and Take That fame. But Paul, sorry, I sped up on the cast on you there, but it's because I know there's so much more for us to talk about. And some of that I'm putting on screen so that we can start talking about the show through the guests. So the guest stars, some of the recurring regulars, just some of the great stories that they were able to tell.
Yeah, like some of the plot lines and stuff like that are great. Which is they really kind of spread out throughout kind of Showtime history as well. A lot of times, and then also the kind of I guess the verging kind of problems and business issues that they have with like political kind of questions and stuff like that with TV as well, and its place in kind of society and stuff like that. So it's a great kind of combination of kind of like comedy where TV sets itself into society, and then show history, TV history, kind of thing with a lot of stuff. So, and these casts are all great.
Yeah, and I think like John Goodman as an example there, he plays a judge in a what I'm going to call a side quest, Paul. I don't know if that's the correct use of that term, but it's definitely a subplot within the larger. There's a couple of episode arc where there's some issues. Some people get arrested or detained, I should say, away from the studio and have to make it back. Again, you got to make it back for the Saturday night show. How are we going to do rehearsals? John Goodman plays, and I'm not spoiling this, I hope, for anybody by saying, so spoiler, if you don't want to know anything and you're going to go and watch it, then please, skip ahead. John Goodman plays I don't know if hillbilly is the right word, but he plays a rural, let's say, judge, with a lot of these city folk judging him very, very quickly. That's played for laughs, it's played for intrigue. But the person who is at the center of the, let's say, trial, it's a bit of Sorkin genius in this, I won't spoil. Why that person is in trouble and why they won't get themselves out of trouble is played out so beautifully. It's one of those arcs that while you're watching it, it's enjoyable. You start realizing, okay, there's more going on. And then it hits you like a 10-ton hammer where you've been laughing and smiling and, enjoying entertainment. And then there's a serious point of, well, this character represents a lot of real life people who will not do something or trade off, someone else's reputation or situation to get themselves out of trouble. There's a moment of honor that every time I see John Goodman in that role, even just looking at the picture, it comes back to me.
Yeah, no, Nevada Day is the episodes, part one and part two.
Yeah.
They are great. They are, yeah. John Goodman plays a very kind of good, yeah. He plays a very good, sophisticated character, that acts as a buffoon, and the stereotype of what everybody from the studio thinks of some kind of like hillbilly background. But he surprises us all with a very emotional kind of very emotional, very intelligent, which is character, which is just great. So, and also, yeah, John Goodman's just so good in West Wing and also in this. Like, it's always great to see him turn up in these kind of things.
It's amazing how many times the words John Goodman's so good in comes up, and it tends to be anything. He's just underrated, massively underrated. Paul, I know we only have a few minutes, but Ed Asner, I'm just going to go through who's on screen, because Ed Asner there plays a Rupert Murdoch style, media mogul owner. Again, is given those story arcs here and there where it plays against what you think is going to happen, and it really works. It's not schmaltzy, it really works. I'm trying to remember her name right now. Lucy Davis from The Office, the original Office fame. She gets to play using her own actual accent, which is nice in an American TV show. And this is after The Office. She gets to kind of embody some of our dreams a little bit, Paul, that she's given a chance as a writer. Yeah. And they give a perfect arc there where you get to see not only the pressure, but the joy, the sadness, the pain, the anguish. But the one that you referenced, and this is what I want to give a little bit of time to, possibly when we come back, Eli Wallach is the guy in the bottom corner. For anybody who knows the good, the bad, and the ugly, well, there's the ugly right there. But he was also so much more in his career. And I think for somebody who I have such massive respect for as an actor, every time I watch that episode of Studio 60, it genuinely makes me cry. He gets to play somebody who not only was a war hero, and again, not going to spoil everything, but has a Hollywood connection where they cover like 4 different topics just through his character. It's impressive, Paul.
Yeah, his story arc is very, very good. I think we'll get into it right after the break and stuff. Yeah. But it's very important from a show history. Not even from show history, from media history.
From history and media history, and how the elderly are thought of and treated. So, Paul, we'll be right back to talk about that in about 30 seconds. See you all soon. You obviously are like 2 people talking about movies, or you wouldn't even be seeing this ad. Well, don't tell anyone. But Hear Us Out isn't the only choice. You should check out our friends over at It Takes Two podcast. It's a podcast where 2 people take 2 films with the same plot or premise, watch and discuss them. Films like Gremlins and Critters, or The Truman Show on EdTV. Lisa and Nick don't stop there though. They get creative and compare some unexpected movies. Some that you don't see the connection until you realise that they can be described in the same way. They launch new episodes every second Tuesday, or Monday if you're in New Zealand. Find them on your favourite podcast service, or check the link in our description down below. That's It Takes Two podcast. Tell them Hear Us Out sent you. So we are back, Paul. And thank you to our sponsored, not sponsored friends out there that we like to pump up. Please, anybody we advertise, it's because they're good friends, but they're also talented ass people. So check out their stuff. That includes It Takes Two and the other advertisement that we run most often, which is, Paul, for
Homebrew, the D&D show on most podcast places, and Homebrew, YouTube Homebrew. So,
there you go.
Homebrew Quest.
So, Paul, talking briefly just about Eli Wallach and the character there again.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should be worried about spoiling episodes of a show that most people now will probably not get a chance to watch unless they seek it out. But I think it's safe to say that in one episode they, with multiple crazy plot lines running around, they deal
Yeah.
with the topic of how an elderly person can be perceived as, maybe just having lost their marbles a little bit, to peeling back layers on what their story is, to peeling back even further layers, to then finally going, oh, you thought we were peeling back layers? By the way, there's a whole big cask of just insane history that we're about to educate you on very quickly. It's one of those things where it's not just Sorkin's writing, it's the content is just incredible.
Yeah, it was a very very good kind of it was a very well written reveal of a very important part of media history. And I'm not going to bury any kind of lead things. It's about the blackballing of certain
Okay.
creative people. I'm going to like
Go for
it's
it. No,
it's
go, no, go,
yeah.
go. Yeah.
It's essentially it comes around to the kind of blackballing of certain creative people. Um, and it's a very kind of it's a very good way of showing the political at some point essentially creatives versus political kind of agendas, which is a big part of kind of media history in the sense that even for a sketch comedy show, that it was also very politicized at certain points in time. That even by and you're talking about a show that essentially SNL, who constantly takes fun out of political, it's like half of it is political satire,
Yep.
kind of thing. That when essentially politics steps in to kind of, I guess, censor and silence people, you have a big problem within a country, especially one that constantly advertises the freedom of speech and freedom and independence kind of stick quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um, that this character's kind of story, kind of slowly revealing more and more about kind of the history of that kind of time period, and how important it is to remember that freedom of speech and ideas and stuff like that, and making fun and bringing to light political parts, is very important for a very modern society. It's a very written, like, even if you're not going to go see the entire show, even just watching it, I think it's called The After Party.
Yeah.
Um, it's a very good episode.
And what Paul just did there was show you that the reason we're going through all this, and what you've just described, Paul, is it really does capture the idea that the freedoms that we have were never free. There's always cost to get the freedoms that you have today. Somebody had to pay the dues at some point, and those dues were paid by people of previous generations in a lot of cases, and that's shown really well. But so why did we go through this, Paul, of talking about the plot, talking about Aaron Sorkin being an amazing writer, then going through all of the cast, pointing out that they're all really successful in different ways, and that Studio 60 has launched so many careers and cemented so many careers, and some amazing guest stars and regulars. And before we talk about why it all failed, or why it all didn't succeed in the end, let's say, rather than failed, take a moment to go back to Brad and Danny, because I think, out of respect for Matthew Perry, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, he was just playing Chandler, but in a different way. He was a more serious Chandler." He wasn't. I think this is one of those times when everybody undervalued a performance at the time because they saw somebody that they'd seen before. They saw, "Oh, I'm used to him being in Friends," and I think Matthew Perry did. I think he was cast and did exactly what he was supposed to do. I think he was just really well cast, and that character was as it should have been. Clever, witty. He's supposed to be a writer, for heck's sake. And again, without burying the lead too much, the fact that he deals with substance abuse and addiction as part of the overall storyline, obviously now in hindsight, we all know it reflects some of the real life Matthew Perry issues.
Yeah, I think Matt Albee must have been a very personal character to play because even when he was on Friends, Matt Perry would always say that he didn't feel funny enough.
Yeah.
kind of thing, and it's very telling because Matt Albee feels that a lot as well. He always feels he needs to be funny, um, so much so that it drives him towards kind of as you say, addiction and substance abuse and stuff like that. So I do feel that Matt Albee was a very personal character for Matt Perry, and I do believe that that comes out in his acting. He's a very likable character. He's a very likable character, but he's one of those characters that he's very funny, he's very friendly, he's very lovable, but it all is kind of a hiding a deeper kind of darkness to him,
Yeah.
which is very telling of characters like that, of people we know who are like, they're always happy, they're always trying to make everybody else happy and stuff like that, and it's because that they know the deeps and horribleness of depression and sadness and stuff that they never want anyone else to feel that way. Matt Albee, Matt Perry's character, very much embodies that a lot, um, which is funny because Danny Tripp also embodies another side of that.
Thank you. You got
Um,
there way
yeah,
before me. We didn't rehearse this one, by
they're
the way, folks. Paul's just
yeah,
speaking my brain
just
for me.
riffing,
It's nice.
just riffing. Yeah. Brad Whitford's character, which is Danny Tripp, is the other side of that coin, where he's very friendly as well, but he's in his own kind of way. But he's a lot more of the kind of serious character of the duo, kind of thing. But it's another form of he in the start of the show. It comes out that he had some substance abuse. Now it isn't like it's over kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's been in rehab and he's kind of challenged that, but it's a different reason from Matt Albee, why Danny Tripp did kind of substance abuse, which is a great kind of show of kind of like there's a different, addiction is always different, kind of thing, and how one character um recognizes another character. That there's a yeah that scene is very powerful where everything comes to a head, and people realize what's going on with Matt Albee, especially, and immediately Danny Tripp knows, and he's the first one. They're brothers. They are brothers in arms. They're brothers in spirit, and it's very good to show kind of the difference, like sides of the coin, a lot. And Brad Whitford and Matt Perry bring those two characters
Yeah.
out so well, so well.
Playing
Um,
playing two halves of the same character sometimes. That's the thing. They're obviously written in a way that they mirror and then diverge so purposely in so many ways. The performances are just outstanding from both the actors. Uh, the writing, again, because it's Sorkin, is snappy and beautiful and can make it all work. But for a show where Matthew Perry's character is supposed to be in love with and have a history with Sarah Paulson's character, that's where the romance is supposed to be. Every time I watch Studio 60, and Amanda Peet has romance, there's romance all over this damn thing.
yeah,
But every time I watch the season from start to finish, the abiding love story that I'm stuck with is actually between these two guys. It's a bond that is realized through business, it's realized through friendship and sorrow, it's realized through the creative process. Like it's shown on so many levels that you don't, even in a romantic movie, you don't usually get to see that level of relationship shown on as many levels as quickly as they do it here. I think Studio 60's biggest magic trick wasn't casting a whole lot of people who are very talented who are going to go on and do even bigger things. I don't even think it was just the magic of being able to have 5 plot lines in one episode
yeah,
where you're able to handle that, because some of them can just be fun little subplot lines that are driving some other things on at points where they're needed to. I think the real magic that this pulled off, it's that you can't do this much in this amount of time. You cannot. I still do not understand how they made 4 seasons of TV in 22 episodes. Like they did. Nobody
yeah.
can convince me that this isn't 4 seasons long. It's so weird because every time I watch it, I'm like, how is this? This is not 5 years of TV. This was 1 season.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Yeah, no, they chalk in a lot. They develop the characters really, really well. It's an incredible kind of like way of doing it. It's like the 20 episodes. Look, if you're not gonna look, this is a love letter to the show.
Yeah.
We're not gonna hide that kind of
Nope,
thing.
nobody's
But
going
if
to
you
watch
watch,
this except thank you, Brian. You've joined us. Hope you check it out. And you're right, John Goodman is the best. If nobody else watches, I don't care. I'm just glad we have this down in
no,
recorded history.
the thing is that if you ever watch this episode, watch it. The most important thing is if you're ever going to take anything away from this, it's the fact is that the writing for those two characters, Matt Albee and Danny Tripp, is so good. It carries so much weight throughout the entire show. You fall in love with Danny and Matt so much so that it makes it so much easier to fall in love with the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
Which is in the show, and it's so well written. And like, yeah, just the pressures and romance and everything that goes on for the 20 something episodes is just incredible. That you are just like, how did they do this? Like, if this is 1 year, one season of this show, I would really have loved to see more kind of things, which is just a pity because, the reasons for this, it was nominated. So there's one thing is I will say that it was nominated for 18 primetime Emmy awards, including the most outstanding drama series of its year.
Yeah.
Like, and it's one season, 18 nominations.
They knew by episode 5 that they probably weren't getting renewed because
yeah.
And Paul, I guess that's the segue right there. Why did it fail? Why did it fail, Paul? I'm going to just go ahead and throw up, let's see, 30 Rock. At the time, cancelling TV shows was much more the done thing. Streaming hadn't taken hold. TV was dominant. TV was in its, back again in its heyday. They were cancelling shows left, right, and centre. They just were. But NBC, unfortunately, thought the best thing that they could do is make a TV show about, a fictitious version, another version of Saturday Night Live. And they thought at the same time, why not make 2 of them and have them come out within a month of each other and have the other one essentially have one of the biggest stars of Saturday Night Live, Tina Fey, be its star and have the backing of, the creator of Saturday Night Live. It was put in there with the wrong competition. And at the time, Paul, everybody thought Studio 60 was going to be the winner and 30 Rock was going to be the loser. We all know how that turned out. And Paul, just before we start talking too much about it, I want to show what it was up against. So, sorry. Here we go. I've messed up the imagery already. 30 Rock had as its lead-in shows. So lead-in is very important. The shows before 30 Rock were My Name is Earl, it had Scrubs, it had The Office. That little-known show at the time, The American Office. Because again, it's not the juggernaut then that it is today. Yeah. So they had comedy shows leading into a comedy show. And that helped 30 Rock. Not only did Studio 60 get moved around, but it also had, as its lead-in, one of the biggest phenomenons before the MCU, Heroes, a non-comedy TV show about superpowered humans that essentially was the new Lost at the time. It was not the right lead-in to a fast hallway talking, thinky, entertainment-based drama show.
Yeah, it would be like if Loki was on TV and it led into the West Wing, kind of thing. It's one of those, like, it's such a change. It's just a atmospheric change, I guess would be the best way to describe it. For the shows, you're
not carrying fans over. You're not giving them anything. You're not doing the warm up and headliner thing at all. And honestly, comparisons with 30 Rock were going to be inevitable, but that's like, I still don't think that it was just NBC's embarrassment of riches that killed Studio 60. And this, Paul, is where I'll probably end up getting hate mail because I'm going to pick on people. I'm going to pick on the people watching. So I'll just throw up the cast. I don't think, and this is not me being elitist, I don't think people in general bought into the idea that this is something to be important or worried about, or that there is stress or pressure. I think a lot of people get The West Wing. They're like, okay, it's highbrow, it's fast talky, but I can buy into all the drama. I can buy into all this because they're dealing with nuclear weapons. They're dealing with the entire economy. And they can buy into the newsroom because it's the news, it's wars happening in places. Again, it's the economy, the big things. Whereas this was trying to get a load of people, and when I say a load, I mean the general public, to say, you should dramatically care about people who have to make a TV show, and not only just a TV show, make a funny sketch comedy show every weekend. It's a much harder sell. Like I say, we're primed for it because just the mere description on a piece of paper would make me sweat because I can place myself there because secretly deep down, you and me, that's where we've always wanted to be. That's the kind of
Yeah.
pressure that we wouldn't mind having because that would be living a dream.
Yeah.
But for, Johnny on the couch somewhere who's just watched Heroes and is ready to save the cheerleader, to save the world, and then
Yeah.
on comes, oh my God, if we don't get to the studio to do the rehearsals, then we're never going to have the show right and live tonight at 8 p.m. They're like, and you're making that the biggest deal in the world? What? Why does this show think it's so important, yet it's about something so silly? I think that's what killed it for a lot of people.
I think so, yeah. And I think the problem, one of the biggest problems I have with the kind of how it's being treated is if that was made today, if this show was made today, it would be a massive hit. Because everybody who aspires to becoming some kind of like YouTube influencer or or like TikTok or
It's a
streamer kind of
very good
things,
point.
they would be eating this show up because this is what
Very good
live
point.
TV show would be like, kind of thing. They would get such a good insight into such a world that they never did. And I can tell you that the reason I know that is because the Newsroom was so popular, and it's
Yeah.
pretty much Studio 60 just set in a different place. Kind of thing.
Well,
Like
that's
the
completely true. You wouldn't have the newsroom if you hadn't had Studio 60.
Yeah, because the so Aaron Sorkin kind of based Studio 60 and also the Newsroom kind of main element to it. I think the very first spark to the shows would be the fact that it's the network speech from two characters. Obviously, in the Newsroom, it's about how America is not the best country in the world anymore. In which is in Studio 60, it's the main producers main producers, kind of executive producers, rants about how TV is being lobotomizing people, and how it's like really turning you into kind of like a meaner country, because this was set just after or just during the after 9/11 and stuff
9/11.
like that.
Yeah.
It's show is set in 2000, or show is made well between 2004 to 2005, but it's set a little bit past essentially the Iraq War and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, and people would eat that up. The fact that TV and stuff like that is lobotomizing us, and
Yeah.
we're becoming meaner and meaner people because of us and stuff like that. It's just it's
You're right. That Alan Alda opening, that everybody says, oh well, they just did what Network, the movie did, where I'm mad as hell now, I just can't take it anymore. Well, yeah, they kind of did, but they did it in a modern way that was very relevant at the time and did it superbly, and it ended up not being the entire reason for the show. It was the catalyst, the kickoff. It was the match that was put to the fuse that ended up being the show. It is undeniable, Paul. I think you're right. It would be a huge hit. And Brian in the comments says, sounds like it would be a hit if released now. I think you're absolutely right. I think at the time it was released, it like ahead of its time is a phrase used and overused. I think it was so perfect for its time, but it was ahead of its time in so many other ways.
oh
And
yeah.
that's why I think people watching it today, if they watch it with a critical but uncritical gaze, so they don't try and make it all relevant to today, but realize when it was made for, I think they'll see the genius in the show.
Yeah. I just want to answer, why would NBC do that with the Studio 30 or
30 Rock.
30 Rock and Studio 60? So Studio 60 was set as a drama, so it fills a drama slot, whereas 30 Rock was set as a comedy, which would fill a comedy slot. So you can see why how the lead in for 30 Rock was all comedies, and Heroes, which would be technically a drama, led into Studio 60, but such a different tone,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So that's the difference between that's why they put the two shows. So they
And
needed to fill
I'm
the
not hating on
slots.
Heroes, folks. I absolutely loved that
No,
first season of Heroes. Swept me off my feet.
it's just a tone. It's such a
Bad
tone
timing for
difference.
Studio 60. But yeah, I think that's a good question to answer, actually. Why would NBC do that? Well, NBC also had just an embarrassment of riches. If you look at that period in NBC's history, they fell probably ass backwards into some of the greatest TV shows of a generation, just happened to be coming their way. Including the American remake of The Office. That's one of those things. Checking the comments though, Paul. I see Pop. Hey, Pop Culture's joined us. Thanks. Good to see you, Pop. 30 Rock overshadowed it. Yeah. And the first comment. Holy cow, Studio 60 is one of my top 5 shows of all time. Exactly why we're writing this internet love letter right now that nobody but the four of us is ever going to see. But anybody who does see it, know that it's worth your while if you can find it. It's like the A Team. Very, very worth finding, because it will fill a huge creative hole for you. One that you didn't even know you had. It's going to have a TV show. You have a TV show shaped hole in you right now if you've never watched Studio 60. And the minute you watch it, you'll feel fulfilled.
If you fell in love with West Wing and Newsroom, and you need more of that kind of thing, then Studio 60 is also where you're about to go. If you are an influencer or an aspiring kind of creative kind of video person, then this is also the show for you.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter that some of the aspects may have changed a little bit as we've moved forward in history, but man, a lot of it has also stayed the same. The pressures on writers and their underappreciation is unbelievable.
So
Uh,
hypothetically, Paul, if you were a couple of people that had full-time jobs and lives that aren't always going perfectly to plan, and you had, I don't know, a show every 7 days that you were going to do live on the internet. Um, oh crap! I think they'll have copped on. I'm talking about us, Paul. Yeah. So like it is. Before we did this, this was, you know, something that we were already emotionally invested in. So even
hmm,
before we ever tried this YouTube stuff, we were watching The Dream in Studio 60 and enjoying the drama and thriving on the pressure of it then. And yeah,
yeah.
don't forget Sports Night, another great Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin hasn't, made many mistakes. Everybody's made a
No.
few. That's why I say he hasn't made many. But I think he's made very, very few. I can see, and thankfully, Pop Culture and Brian here are commenting over and back, talking about why it might have failed and looking up things about 30 Rock. Yeah, 30 Rock's ratings were lower, but you're right, Pop. All signs point to Studio 60 was a much more significantly expensive show,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because of its general setup and its makeup. But when it launched, and this is what everybody forgets now, really people were talking to Matthew Perry and people like that in interviews going, do you think it'll get 9 seasons or 11 seasons? Like that's how it was being viewed
Yeah.
before it aired its first episode, just
Yeah.
based on its trailer. Everybody saw success. And that also was one of the things that killed it. When you set the bar this high, you can be winning 1-0 at halftime and win a game of football or soccer. But if the crowd expects you to have scored 10, they can still get antsy in the stands. And when you're NBC and you've had your expectations set up here, and it
Yeah.
comes out down here, which is still higher than anything else. Back then, TV shows were being canned. I think almost, as part of a poker bet, like forfeit. I bet you Drive for whatever else, something else that's been cancelled. You can name cancelled TV shows at that time. Everybody had two or three of them. Firefly, Drive, whatever it might be. The amount of stuff that didn't see second season or even finish their first season is criminal in the first half of
Yeah.
the 2000s.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and with the expensive, although it was lower ratings and cheaper to make, it did have a growing fan base and rerunability. A lot of other channels and broadcasters were actually trying to get. They weren't trying to get Studio 60, but
Hmm.
they were trying to buy, which was rerun distribution rights of 30 Rock.
Yeah.
So yeah, they
You
were trying
know,
to do that for The Office and everything else as well. So
exactly. Yeah. They were advertising friendly machines too, which is great. Not as many brands want to associate themselves with hallway talking, Paul. It's
yep.
strange. I don't know why. We should come up with carpet cleaning products that are, you attach them to your shoes. So when you're walking up and down your hallway having a conversation about the future of the Western world, you should wear these. Then things like Studio 60 would have had advertisers every week too. Anyway, Paul, we love it. It's safe
Yep.
to say we've said nothing bad about it, and there are bad things that could be said, but they won't come from
Mhm.
me. They just won't come from me because it's a star that shone extremely brightly, so much so that, like I said, it's four of the greatest seasons of TV ever made. Yet apparently it was only one.
Yeah. Yeah. The best 4 seasoned, 1 season show.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So, which is, if you really like the show and stuff like that, which is our show, not Studio 60. If you like Studio 60, comment down below. But if you like our show, which is like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, which is, yeah, comment down below what you think of Studio 60 if you do get to watch it. If you haven't watched it and you do watch it because of this video, let us know. We'd love to
yeah,
talk to you about it. We'd like to grow that audience, kind of thing. If you watch it and you don't like it, let us know why. Is it the subject matter? Is it the time period in which it's set in? Let us know what it is. Which goes, we'd love to hear about more of that.
yeah. And on that note, Paul, I have been Patrick,
And I've been Paul.
and we've been our own Matt and Danny. We've been here aside. See you
Oh,
next
we're
time.
gonna fight over who's Matt and Danny, aren't we?
I will take either.
That's it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's very
yeah.
fair. I would too.
All right,
But
everybody.
yeah,
And
thank you very much.
yeah, and just little last shout out. Fair play to Matthew Perry. What a guy. All right.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.